Here I'm going to look at some examples dealing with the pieces of circles and circumference. So in the first one, I have this picture that's could be a little tricky to draw. I've tried to draw it before, and to get all these circles to intersect the way they are, it's sometimes a little tricky. So if you have it printed out, it's probably the best way. But notice it gives me a bunch of information about the diameters of the three different circles: circle X, circle Y, and circle Z. And we need to calculate certain lengths. In this first one, I want to calculate the length of segment EY. Come over here, that would be that total length. Well, now if I go back to this information, it tells me that the diameter of circle X is 22. Well, being it says circle X, I know X is the center of the circle, which then is going to tell me that if I take 22 and cut it in half, that's going to give me the radius. So this length right here is 11, and so would this one. Now, that's going to be too much for that segment EY, the length. And then I'm going to go on to my next part that talks about circle Y, and it tells me that the diameter of that one is 16. So if I take the 16 and cut it in half, I find out that the radius of circle Y, which would be right here, is 8. Well, now I can look at that and say, well, I know part of this green segment that I had highlighted before is 11, part of it's 8. So to calculate the length of my segment, I'll take the 11 plus the 8, get my grand total of 19, and notice that my label was millimeters. Don't forget those labels, remember. So have that one done. Next one I'm going to look at the length of segment YG. Let's use purple to highlight that. So segment YG, that whole one there. Now in this one, I can go back to, I know the diameter of circle Y is 8, so that's going to give me part of it. And then all I have left is this length right here. Well, that's the radius of circle Z. And if I look back there, it tells me here that the diameter of circle Z is 10, which is going to tell us that the radius of circle Z is 5. Well, I should be able to calculate now the length of segment EG. I can take my 8, add on my 5, to get my grand total of 13 millimeters. Oops, sorry, I did that in the wrong spot, didn't I? Let me fix that. This should all be over here. That's the length of segment YG. Sorry about that. But then the last one is the length of segment EG, which is going to be from E all the way to G. So that whole segment that runs across there. Now I look at this and go, well, I know the 11 part, and then from there it goes to 8, and then from there it's to 8, and then it's to 5. So I can just take those four numbers, add them all together, and I should have it. So I have the 11, the 8, the 8, and the 5. Do my addition on this, and I'll have my answer for the length of segment EG. So I have 19 plus 8 is 27, plus 5 is 32 millimeters for the length of segment EG. And I found all those based off that picture and then the diameters that it gave to us. Now my next one says calculate the circumference of a circle with a radius of 10 inches. Now remember, we had a circumference formula from our circle books that said circumference equals 2 times pi times r. Now it's just a matter of plugging in what we know. 2 and the pi, those are going to stay as is. And it tells us that the radius is 10. Well, multiply my 2 the pi and the 10 together, and I'm going to end up with 20 pi inches for my circumference. Now if we go to the approximate value and we type it in on our calculator, we're going to end up with approximately 62.83 inches. Now remember, I use the pi button on my calculator and not just 3.14. So depending on what it asks for, what form of pi, use the correct form and you'll get your correct answer. Now here my final problem. This one, it wants me to calculate the diameter of the circle, and it tells us that the circumference is 25 feet. Now again, I'm going to go back to my circumference formula, and actually, I'm going to use a different one. I could use circumference equals 2 pi r, or being it's looking for diameter, I'm just going to go to the formula that already has diameter in it. And then I'm going to plug in what I know. It tells me that my circumference is 25. Pi times, well, I don't know d, so leave it as is. Now it's just a matter of solving my equation. So if I divide both sides by pi, if I want my exact value, it's just going to be 25 over pi feet. So there would be the exact diameter of my circle. Now if I want that approximate value, just take your 25 and divide it by pi on your calculator, and you're going to find out that the approximate value for the diameter in this case is going to be 7.96 feet. And that's going to conclude my lesson on, or excuse me, my videos, or examples on circles and circumference.